AskReddit, teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? Subscriber all and humanity. This happened to me as a pupil. A very quiet, unassuming kid in our class came into German with about 5 minutes of the class left. We went to a Catholic school and the teachers were all quite strict and intimidating. Classes were usually silent, especially in junior school. When this boy came into class at the end of the lesson that day, the door flew inwards with such force that the teacher gave an audible gasp. It had been raining heavily outside. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His blazer was dripping and sodden. He had mud caked into his trousers up to his knees, and he was breathing heavily. The teacher exclaimed, "Brendan, what happened?" We all stared up at him in shocked silence. This quiet, unassuming little boy let out a big sigh and just said, "I took a shortcut," and went straight to his seat. That line became iconic in our school for years afterwards. A kid's apartment burned down overnight. He was a little late but still came. Not me but in my class. This was in college. Student turned in work late after not showing up for 2 classes. 2 classes amounted to a full week, so it was noticeable. Professor looked at him and said, "I hope somebody died for you to be this late." Does my dad count? Quote, "Honestly, I've always heard you can hear a pin drop and never really thought anything of it. But yeah, you could hear a fucking pin cut through the air after that." A kid missed my first period class one morning, but was in school later that day. When I asked him why he hadn't arrived in time for my course, he said his cow was birthing its calf that morning, so he'd picked being in the barn over English. Made sense to me. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. Not a teacher but a friend said his house blew away. Apparently, tornado. Not school, but I got robbed at gunpoint and my car stolen the previous night and was talking to cops. Detectives until the early hours of the morning. But being the dedicated corporate slave I am, I showed up to work the next day, albeit an hour or so late. Even in public accounting they understood and even said, "You know, this is clearly inappropriate reason to not come into work, right?" Quote, "Looking back, I probably should have taken that day off. If anything, this made my coworkers think I'm some crazy person for just brushing the whole incident off as no big deal and coming into work." When I was in college, my psych professor told us that the only excuse for being late was a funeral procession. Any other reason, you wouldn't be allowed to come in. A few weeks into the semester, I was headed from one building to another, which involved crossing the main road. Lo and behold, there was one very long funeral procession going by. I got a short video of it as proof, then stood on the sidewalk to let it go by. Unfortunately, the procession made me 5 minutes late to class. I knocked on the door, and the professor came over to start to tell me off. I showed her the video. "Well, I'll be damned. Come on in." One of my organ students told me he was late arriving for his lesson because he got stuck behind a lengthy funeral procession en route to the cemetery. I knew he was telling the truth because I had played the organ for the service earlier that morning, and the church was packed. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase, "Sorry, grain train," you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50-plus carriage trains to run through the middle of town. This was me as a student. My parents thought I'd get President's Day off, so they didn't wake me up. My bus hit a bird and the whole windshield was cracked. We had to wait for another bus to pick us up. Flock of wild turkeys in the road. Not always school, but this happened more than once in my life. For those of you who have never found yourselves in this situation, there is no way out of it. Wild turkeys will move when they damn well decide to do so, and only then. We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true. So as a joke, the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that.